Sufism defined. Sufism is the inner, mystical dimension of Islam, and whose objective is the reparation of the heart and turning it away from all else but God. The keynote of Sufism is disinterested, selfless devotion, in a word, love. Or simply put, God is love. The true origin of the word Sufi is unknown, but some suggest it was from Ashab as-Safa, meaning companions of the porch, who were a group of Muslims during the time of Muhammad who spent much of their time on the veranda of the Prophet's mosque. It is believed that Sufism is the strict emulation of Muhammad through which the hearts of connection to the divine is strengthened. From the traditional Sufi point of view, the esoteric teachings of Sufism were transmitted from the Prophet Muhammad to those who had the capacity to acquire the direct experiential gnosis of God, which was passed from teacher to student through centuries.
The way of the Sufis was regarded as the way of truth and salvation. To be assiduous in piety, to give up all else for God's sake, to turn away from worldly goods and vanities, to renounce pleasure, wealth, and power, which are the general objects of human ambition, to abandon society, and to lead in the seclusion of a life solely devoted to the service of God. These were the fundamental principles of the Sufis which prevailed among the companions and the Muslims of old time. When, however, in the second generation and afterwards worldly taste became widely spread and men no longer shrank from such contaminations, those who made piety their aim were distinguished by the title of Sufis or Mutasawwifa.
To enter the way of Sufism, the seeker begins by finding a teacher, as the connection to the teacher is necessary for the growth of the pupil. The teacher, to be genuine, must have received the authorization to teach of another master of the way, in an unbroken succession, leading back to Sufism's origin with the Prophet Muhammad. In the transmission of the divine light from the teacher's heart to the heart of the student, in addition, the genuine teacher will be utterly strict in his adherence to the divine law. The spiritual poverty is both the feeling of being imperfect and needy and the desire for perfection. The Prophet Muhammad said in this regard, "My honor is from spiritual poverty. I have been honored over and above all prophets in being graced with spiritual poverty." And revealed to the Prophet, "Say God, increase my true knowledge of you." As this saying indicates, even though Muhammad was given the honor of prophethood, it was still necessary that he feel his poverty and desire to be nearer to the essence of God.
The kirka is the dervish's garment of honor and devotion. It symbolized the divine nature and attributes. Some people have mistakenly imagined that the cloak actually possesses these properties and that if one was to wear such a cloak, one would become a saint. However, wearing spiritual clothing does not make one spiritual. A Sufi wears what he or she likes while being in harmony with what is socially approved. Ali said, "Wear these clothes that neither cause you to be looked down upon nor admired and envied." Thus, it is not the clothes that make the Sufi, rather it is the Sufi's actions and inner being.
Contained in absolute infinite unity are forces which eliminate and become manifested as created beings. Each being, according to its nature, receives grace from these forces. In the realm of words, the manifestations of these forces, or truths, are expressed by divine names. Some examples are the living, Al-Hay, means the life of creation is directly connected with him. And the transcendent, Al-Ali, means the force of the universe is with him. Divine names and continuous selfless remembrance of God are prescribed by the master of the spiritual path in order to cure the disciples of the disease of the self and the desires and fears. But this remembrance is of no value unless all of one's senses come to be fully centered on the meaning reality of the respective names. It is only by full acknowledgement and love of the reality of these divine names that attention to the self falls away, Then the self becomes purified and adored by the divine attributes. Those who are purified in Sufism are called perfect human beings. For so long did the Beloved face my open heart, that except for his attributes and nature, nothing remained of that heart. Maghrebi.
The musical and aesthetic aspect of Sufism is called Sama. The Sufis, while being spiritually enraptured, give all of the attention of their hearts to the Beloved. Often, with special and rhythmical music, they engage themselves in the selfless remembrance of God. In this state, the Sufi is a drunken lover who becomes unaware of everything but God. With all their faculties, the Sufis are attentive to the Beloved, and have totally given up and forgotten themselves.
Since the words are manifestations of objects, concepts, and truths, Sufis feel that by continuous and complete attention to the meaning and reality of remembrance of God, they become the true manifestation of that remembrance. That is to say, with continuous, selfless remembrance, a divine attribute comes to predominate in a Sufi's being. The Sufis consider that there is a particular divine attribute that dominates the being of every prophet and saint, such that each can be said to the incarnation of that attribute. For example, Sufis feel that Moses is the manifestation of the transcendent aspect of reality because his ability to speak with God without any intermediary. In the Quran, the Lord said to Moses, "Do not fear because you are transcendent." Jesus is the manifestation of prophethood. While an infant he cried, "God gave me the book and placed me as a prophet." Sufism being the central organizing principle of many Islamic traditions, it's not surprising that colonial powers attack Sufi masters as one means of undermining the forces of indigenous self-determination. In some countries today, the institutional expression of Sufism is simply illegal. Most famous is an example of a case in Turkey where in 1925, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk imposed a law outlawing and disbanding the Sufi orders. This law remains in effect, and the famous whirling dervishes are only tolerated as a form of folk entertainment, a politically acceptable remnant of the once prominent Mevlevi order.